Hello, everyone. It's JML here. We have
Charlie.
a look back in time, WrestleMania 13. Yes, yes, Charlie is with me. This is our second recording of the day, the one that we were looking forward to. We save the best for last.
Indeed.
WrestleMania 13. WrestleMania, man, let me tell you, I forgot where the event took place. It was in Chicago,
Hmm.
Illinois. This is Rosemont Horizon. Uh, is this the same venue that All Out takes place? I think it is.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think it is. Um, the previous pay per view was the Fatal Four Way. So if you watched our previous episode of Royal Rumble 1997, you will know that Stone Cold Steve Austin won the Royal Rumble, even though he technically shouldn't have won the Royal Rumble. There was a Fatal Four Way match made that was originally supposed to be for the number one contender. That did not happen. uh, it ended up being for the WWF Championship, which Shawn Michaels had. Shawn Michaels lost his smile and he had a knee injury. Charlie, could you put into words how confusing this whole situation was with the WWF title, the storylines?
Well, I certainly can't clean it up any bit because the one pay per view I've never seen in my life was In Your House Final Four. I was on
Yes.
vacation when it aired, and I still haven't seen it to this day. But I can tell you that somehow Psycho Sid emerged as champion and went on to face The Undertaker at WrestleMania 13.
So what happened at I always called it Fatal Four Way. It was called Final Four. Bret Hart won the WWF title for a fourth time. He won the match. The stipulation was because Sid was supposed to face Michaels for the title at Final Four, that the next night on Raw, Bret had to defend against Psycho Sid.
Gotcha.
Thus, you know, this started the whole Bret Hart. This is bullshit. That whole storyline. At some point, we're gonna play that clip. I'm gonna bring it up. I think it's one of the best promos ever because you didn't know if it was real or not.
Yeah.
Um, in a lot of ways, the final four, WrestleMania 13, and moving forward, I think, in my opinion, this is where the Attitude Era really gets its start.
Yeah.
Um,
That's fair.
it was edgier. They had, obviously, we'll get into the main event or the main events. But the reason why I watched and anticipated this event as a kid, the match between Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Vince McMahon on commentary. Thank God he doesn't do commentary.
Hindsight 2020. I really don't know why they didn't just allow it to start being JR and Jerry Lawler 2-man booth from here to infinity. But Vince figured he needed to be on commentary for whatever reason.
Yeah. Oh man. So you had, it was a sellout, 18,197 people with a gate of $837,000. So they made money that night, which is always great. The pay per view sold pretty well. I forgot the opening match. This started a string of like really bad opening matches, in my opinion.
It's what happens when you don't put Owen Hart in the opening match.
The the Headbangers, Furnace and LaFon, the team of the Godwins, and the Blackjacks A
The new
four-way
black.
elimination match to determine the number one contenders for the WWF Tag Team Championship. What's crazy is Vince McMahon never cared about tag team wrestling, but yet not only had the tag team titles defended on this show, but number one contenders for the tag team titles.
Yeah.
How did this doesn't make sense to me? And this wasn't when the tag team division was lighting the world on fire.
No.
Again, I'm going to mention the tag teams in the match just so the audience can get it through their heads. The Headbangers, Furnace and LaFon, the Godwins, and the New Blackjacks. The audience at home is probably like, who the hell are the New Blackjacks? Yes, the New Blackjacks. Wyndham and Bradshaw. So bad. This was bad gimmicks all around. I enjoyed the Headbangers. I have a soft spot for the Headbangers. But other than that, this shouldn't have been the opening match.
No.
I would have, you know what? Owen and Bulldog should have been the opening match.
Just to stick to the tradition.
Yeah. What did you feel about this four-way elimination?
I think they could have gone without the double team elimination at that one point, but other than that, it was I wouldn't call it awful, but it wasn't the greatest opening about especially for WrestleMania.
Yeah. It's just weird that they would have a number one contenders match for the tag belts on a WrestleMania card.
Maybe that should have been a free-for-all match.
Maybe that should have just not been on the card.
Yeah.
And then another, who booked this shit? Rocky Maivia, the youngest Intercontinental Champion of all time at this point, versus the Sultan, who was managed by Bob Backlund and the Iron Sheik.
And Iron Sheik, yeah.
Think about that combo. Iron Sheik beat Bob Backlund for the WWF Championship in a controversial manner at Madison Square Garden many moons ago. And they're getting along to manage the freaking Sultan?
Yep.
This obviously wasn't a great gimmick for The Rock or the Sultan. They would go on to bigger and better things. The Rock, obviously, Rock Maivia becomes The Rock. The Sultan becomes Rikishi. Both guys are in the WWF Hall of Fame. And they're related.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think they paired this match as Rock's first singles pay-per-view match to be safe?
Probably.
Pairing him with Rikishi?
Yeah. And then they made his dad look like a chump too. Like he comes to the rescue of The Rock, and then he gets beat up, and then The Rock all of a sudden gets back up and recovers, and they're left. They're both in the ring, left standing. But it was just really awkward. The finish was awkward. The post match thing was awkward.
Yeah.
This obviously wasn't a great start to an Intercontinental Championship reign, and the beginning of Rocky's career in WWF. I always knew he had something, but obviously this gimmick wasn't it.
The blue chipper gimmick wasn't it for The Rock.
Yeah. And it's very reminiscent of Randy Orton. Remember when Randy Orton first debuted? And
with the bicycle shorts with the double stripe on them? Yeah.
Yeah. Where he was booked as like the third generation guy, the blue chipper.
Smiling baby face. Yeah.
But then they turned him heel with Evolution.
Uh-huh.
And then The Rock, the parallels between The Rock and Randy Orton. It's like, granted, The Rock is The Rock, but they have similar arcs in the
Yeah.
beginning of their career. It was almost like they took the recipe of The Rock and then we're like, we're gonna do the same thing with Randy Orton because the blue chipper's not working. Let's just turn him heel and see what happens.
Yeah.
And both of them lit the world on fire. Um, at least the Intercontinental title was defended.
This is true, especially speaking today.
Yeah, the Intercontinental title is being defended for the first time in like 14 months, 15 months on pay per view at Clash of the Castle,
Yeah.
which is crazy. I didn't even remember that it hasn't been defended for that long on a live event, premium live event show. Anything else you want to say about the Intercontinental title match?
No.
No. Next match, we have the GOAT tier pairing of Triple H with China versus Goldust. This is a much better match than they had at Rumble.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what it was. Maybe it was China influence, whatever. But this was a much better match.
Their chemistry was just spot on.
Yeah. What do you think happened at Rumble?
Curtis Hughes.
Curtis
Let's blame it on Curtis Hughes.
Yeah, I don't get it. The pedigree. A lot of people talk about finishing moves. The pedigree's got to be in the top 10 conversation for best finishing moves ever.
Yeah.
That move is awesome.
Once he got it down right and stopped breaking jobbers' necks with it, it really shined.
Yeah. What I liked was that it picked up towards the end. It was a little like the feeling out process, it labored a bit, but it was definitely a much better match. It wasn't a 5-star classic by any means, this match,
No.
but it was much improved. So kudos to them. The next match we have on the card was anything else you want to say? GOAT tier pairing, China.
Oh, what about China whipping Marlena around like a rag doll?
Go ahead. Have at it.
Okay. What I'm trying to remember the setup for that. Oh, China was going face to face with Marlena, and Goldust came up and lifted Marlena onto the apron to save her from China. Triple H came from behind Goldust, knocked Marlena into China's arms, and the way China just whipped her around like a rag doll, you thought she was going to break her spine. What she was doing, it was wild. You have to go back and watch that clip.
Because Terry is like a very she's very small, compact in China.
Yeah.
Obviously, China and, big girl. And it looked so realistic.
Oh, yeah.
It was so well done. China played an important part in Triple H's career. And I'm glad that now Triple H reflects back and he gives her the credit that she deserves.
Still probably won't put her in the Hall of Fame, but
I think now he will.
You think so?
I think that's more of a Vince thing.
No. The reason why was Triple H was afraid that his daughters would look up China and see her. Yeah.
I don't know. His daughters are older now, though. They're
I think he meant generally for kids anywhere, not just his kids.
What did Brock Lesnar say to Heath Slater?
I don't give a fuck about your kids.
I don't give a shit about your kids. I mean, in all seriousness, China I
Deserves to
guess
be in the
she's
Hall of
in
Fame.
the Hall of Fame as a DX member,
Yeah,
but if you're gonna do all these dual Hall of Famers,
yeah.
you got to put
And
China
deserves
in. Was China the best worker? No, but she was a freaking superstar. She was a superstar. Chris Jericho hated her.
it. Yeah, he's not shy about that either.
He's not shy about it, but man, she did a lot. She was revolutionary for females and an inspiration.
Absolutely.
Uh, it's very sad to see what transpired with her life and how it ended. It would be nice to solidify that with more than just being grouped in with DX as a Hall of Fame faction. She was really the glue of DX in many ways. That
That's fair.
she managed Triple H, X Pac, and I don't know. She was the first female Intercontinental Champion.
Yep. She deserves it.
She deserves it. Um, is Marlena in the Hall of Fame? She's not in the Hall of Fame either.
No,
I think she's underrated.
definitely.
She was underrated. Um, anything else you want to say about that match or
No,
the participants?
we're good.
Obviously, Triple H 97, the character change is coming. The seeds are planted. And what's crazy is once we get DX, you really start seeing the true Triple H, and it's great to
Awesome.
see. Yeah, it's great to see. Next match, Undertaker, Owen Hart, and the British Bulldog versus Mankind and Vader for the WWF Tag Team titles. Yes, we had multiple tag team matches on a pay per view. Vince
When
McMahon
tags.
must have been irate. Um, this wasn't a bad match. It wasn't a great match. It was what it was.
I didn't like the double count out or double count out.
It was double count out.
Yeah, I didn't
It
like
was to
that.
make all of them look strong and
Yeah,
um, which for Vader, there was no going back. Like you were never going to recover from how you booked him, anyways.
no.
And as we're talking about people who really skyrocket and you start to see the versatility, Mankind over the next several months morphs into Mick Foley, right, with the sit down interviews, the Mankind with JR interviews.
Yeah,
He morphs into Dude Love. We get to see Cactus Jack, so we get the three faces of Foley. We understand who Mick Foley is as a person, the man behind the mask and the characters. I don't remember interviews doing more for a superstar than Mick Foley in 97. Like those pre-taped interviews. But those interviews with JR,
skyrocketed.
they did wonders for Mick.
Absolutely.
Um, Owen Hart, man. I think I say this every show, just about. This guy should have been WWF champion at some point.
Oh yeah.
The more and more that I see him, and yes, there'll probably be people in the comments saying I'm biased. How is this guy not on everyone's top 10 best wrestlers of all time?
No clue.
Like,
He deserves to be.
unbelievable. Can you imagine a family where you have Bulldog, right? Part of the family. Uh, Neidhart, Owen, and Brett. Like that, those four guys are in the same family, and obviously now you have like the second generation with Natalia and Tyson Kidd, T.J. Wilson, and D.H. Smith. But man, what a lineage! But to have two of the top 10 best wrestlers of all time and their brothers, like that's crazy.
It is.
Absolutely ridiculous. It's a shame that Bulldog had all these demons and health issues. So Bulldog in his prime could really go as well, and he showed that before. But this was a different era of Bulldog where he needed to be in a tag team. He just couldn't go. He couldn't.
Yeah, he was gassed even in tag team matches. He was.
I mean, he still was a powerhouse, but he could only operate in spurts. Um, I never liked Paul Bearer managing anyone other than Kane and The Undertaker.
Hmm.
I mean, am I off base there?
I think as far as storytelling goes, it makes sense that he managed Mankind. I don't think he should have managed Vader. But to have him, if he were to only manage Undertaker and Kane, that would make a lot more sense than anything else.
Yeah. Anything you want to say about the five people involved in this match?
I just didn't like the double count out ending. Otherwise, it was a decent match.
Cool. All right. Let me take a drink here. We'll saddle up for this one. You know what's next, don't you?
Oh, yes, I do. The submission match between Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Who was the special guest referee?
I was about to say with Ken Shamrock as the special guest referee.
For the audience at home that's never watched before and they're watching or watching this for the first time, and hopefully they go and check out WrestleMania 13 after this. Who was Ken Shamrock?
I didn't know who he was at the time either. So, but he was a professional cage fighter.
Yes, for the UFC, he was the equivalent of John Bones Jones, right? Like your top UFC competitor. And this is when the UFC really didn't have any weight classes. So these mother effers were tough. Like this was like cockfighting in an octagon. It was brutal. If you go and watch the original UFC and compare it to today's product, you'd be like, what is this? Like, what is this? If you there was Royce Gracie used to fight. Royce Gracie was probably like 160, 170 pounds. I saw him fight a 400-pound dude and kick his ass. That was how UFC had no weight classes.
That's crazy.
It was basically just it was cockfighting. That's what it was. They weren't making money. Obviously, Dana White comes in early 2000s, makes the weight divisions, makes it more like boxing in the way of its presentation. The interview styles become more pro wrestling-esque as well. And UFC now is UFC. Ken Shamrock is a UFC legend. He's a UFC Hall of Famer. WWF was looking for a big name to add to the roster. So they signed Ken Shamrock to a lucrative deal. And I'll tell you what, they built him up as a badass for sure. I mean, they did a great job building him up. Don't you agree?
Yeah, they certainly did.
In many ways, what was weird is Ken Shamrock pretty much leaves September or October of 1999. And around that time, someone made their debut in WWF by the name of Kurt Angle. And it's funny. It's similar. Like Kurt Angle is the better version of what they thought they would get out of Ken Shamrock. So it's just funny how like their paths never crossed, but I always compared the two together because they both used the ankle lock, but they both wrestled the same, like the German suplexes and
Yeah.
everything. Um, like the early presentation. This match here, to me, is as perfect of a match you will ever get in professional wrestling. You have storyline, you have match quality, you have the use of blood
I was about to say, you have the use of blood properly and effectively in this match.
effectively. So a little insight. At this time, Vince McMahon did not allow blood. Did you know that, Charlie?
No.
So in the back, when Brett and Austin are talking about the match, Brett mentions to Austin, he's like, I think you should juice. And Austin's like, Vince, the old man's not going to let us do it. He's like, no, we're going to do it. And he's going to end up liking it. And it's going to make this match even, even better. And they rolled with it. They did it. Brett walked up to Vince and was like, you see, that's why we did it. And this was the perfect use of blood.
Yes.
I watched Dynamite a couple weeks ago, and I don't want to beat up on AEW all the time, but almost every single match there was blood. You don't need it. You don't need it at all. Walk me through the match, Charlie. What were your thoughts on the match? Your thoughts on the story?
I don't remember. I thought this match went a lot longer than it actually did. How long did this match go?
22 minutes.
22 minutes?
It's
For
still a
some
long
reason,
time.
for some reason, I thought it hit the half hour mark. But I guess that just means that I wanted more. They spent a lot of time in the crowd to start off the match, hitting a lot of spots out there.
Yep.
Finally got control and came back towards the ring. What cut Austin open? The table spot, right?
Yes.
Okay. There was a table spot that cut Austin open. Shamrock did a good job as well.
Yep.
Of keeping everything in line. It just had everything. It had hard hitting action for those fans. It had submission technicians for technical fans. They hit every bullet point of what makes a great wrestling match. They
Yep.
hit it.
They went back and forth. They told the story. They pulled at the heartstrings because, pun intended, they pulled at the heartstrings.
Mm-hmm.
Brett walked in as a babyface, walks out as the heel. Right? You have Austin now as a babyface, and in today's wrestling, Austin would have been kissing babies the next night on Raw. What was great was all they did was just change face to heel, double turn.
Yep.
Neither in Austin didn't act any differently than he did before.
No. And Brett solidifies that heel turn later on in the night.
Yes. And with another promo that happens.
Yeah.
So the most iconic image is the sharpshooter, Austin with the blood dripping down his face. He never taps out.
Yep.
He just passes out. It was well executed. It was beautifully done. It will always be in my head, this match. I go back and forth of greatest match of all time. This is certainly in the conversation.
Definitely.
You think so? It
Top
really,
5, top 3.
I mean, think about what it did. It put Austin on the, like, he was already towards that superstardom. This really hit on all cylinders for him.
Yeah.
And it never stopped from this point.
No.
It was full speed ahead. I'd even argue that they waited too long for him to win the title, but we'll discuss that later on in future episodes. But this was just so great. It was so great. Bret Hart in 1997, he quite arguably had his best year ever because he had his best character and he can always wrestle. So when you put the two together, it's absolute magic. And unfortunately, it comes to an end. Survivor Series 1997.
Yep. I was going to say best and possibly worst with it coming to an end.
But what an incredible run. Like,
yeah.
You had the Rumble match, great performance. Final Four, great performance and showing. This pay-per-view, one of the best matches of all time. One of the most important turns, right?
Uh-huh.
Both ways of all time.
Absolutely.
It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I want to play back this clip. Let me get it loaded up.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh. Okay.
Obviously, disconsolate Bret Hart. Extremely frustrated over what has just happened. Don't touch me, motherfucker. They betrayed me. They didn't keep their promise.
I think you didn't find the right clip.
That wasn't the right clip. So someone did a voiceover. We got Rick rolled. But that's funny.
Wow.
But let me see if I can find it.
I was about to start quoting it too, and then that voiceover came in.
Hold on.
Frustrated doesn't even.
So I am 12 years old. I'm watching this with my grandfather because I watched wrestling with my grandfather. My grandfather was like, he literally had his mouth open. Bret Hart was also his favorite wrestler. He was like, wow. He's like, what is going on here? This is incredible. And it picks up a little bit. Now, listen. What does this remind you of that's going on today in today's wrestling?
Punk.
Yep. I'd love to play the whole clip, but for those that haven't seen it, go on YouTube and find it. Find the right one. Get it loaded up. Watch it.
Bret Hart shoot promo, WWE Raw.
Yeah, I'll put it in our description box.
March 17th, 1997.
Yeah, I'll put it in our description. What an absolute turn from you got all nervous. A turn by Bret, and like he felt it. That's probably his best promo, one of his best promos. But all of his promos in '97 as a heel were tremendous. Tremendous. man, they should have ended the pay-per-view with that match.
Yeah.
It's like literally like when Michaels and Taker had their Mania match, and then Orton and Triple H had to go on after that.
Pretty
There
much.
was no going on after
No. Taker Michaels.
Austin and Brett.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? Then you had the Chicago street fight. I have to be careful.
As Frank put it, the only memorable thing about this match was the kitchen sink.
Was the kitchen sink, the Road Warrior pop, Legion of Doom pop. They got a huge pop, huge ovation. This was not a great match at all.
This wouldn't fly in today's product either.
No.
With the noose and no.
This was not good. I don't really want to talk about it. It made me uncomfortable in a lot of ways. Hawk and Animal no longer with us, but both of them were past their prime at this point. Especially Hawk. It was unfortunate. Anything you want to add?
When Animal fell off the table mid pile driver, that scared the crap out of me. Rewatching that, I don't know if I caught how dangerous that was the first time, but that was a near fatal botch.
Yep.
Same as you though. I feel uncomfortable talking about this match.
Yeah. You want to go to the main event?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go to the main event.
That would be next, right?
Yep. Main event. Undertaker challenging for the WWF title against Sid. Sid was like the ultimate transitional champion.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me, a couple months earlier, not even like a month and a half earlier, Shawn Michaels relinquished the title, said he was going to retire. He lost his smile. He had a knee injury. He had 8 million excuses. But yet, he appears on commentary, and he looks healthy as an ox. What's going on here?
Couldn't tell you.
You couldn't.
I was just happy to see Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. Sid doing promos, not a good promo guy.
No. Screamer.
The Undertaker, his entrance was okay. Wasn't a top tier Taker entrance by any means. But you would figure they would have done something more grandiose for him.
Yeah, he did the throwback to the gray gloves and gray boots, but other than that, there was not much to it.
Prior to the match, what happened?
You had Brett come out and talk about how he should be champion right now and how everyone's screwing him over and how Shawn Michaels has a pussy foot injury.
It was true.
Yeah.
And this is where like the attitude.
And then Sid laid him out, right?
What?
Then Sid laid him out, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
He told Sid that the WWF title belonged to Brett and Sid was a fraud. Everyone knew it. Sid decked him with the punch and gave Brett a powerbomb. Sid told him to leave. The crowd cheered that while refs escorted Brett out. That's basically what happened. Yeah, they were like, this is the same gear that Taker wore at his first WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Cool. After the entrance that he had at Survivor Series 1996, this was just not like you would expect something more great. Shawn Michaels came down from a freaking zip line last year. The Undertaker should have came out of the Grand Canyon or something. Like it should have been something huge. It was sort of a letdown. Sort of a letdown. Usually the Undertaker can work with anyone. This was not a good pairing.
No.
And the fact that they gave this match 20 minutes, this was 10 minutes too long for these two men.
Sid didn't go the distance that he did with Michaels in this match.
No. Sid was like over, but he was like right place at the right time for both of these title reigns that he had. Like he was like the backup to the backup to the backup. It was like just crazy circumstances on how he became champion twice. And people are always like, well, he's a two-time champion. He should be in the Hall of Fame. It's like, no, not really. He really only had cups of coffee with the company like twice. And that was it. Oh, he worked well in WCW. Yeah, and snapped his leg in half. Like, come on.
Aiming for something that no near 7-footer should ever try doing in their life.
And I don't want to play that clip because people will just throw up.
Yeah, they'll never watch our show again.
Yeah. You know what I didn't realize? When Taker won this match, this was his second WWF title reign. That I realized.
Yeah.
That I remember. But he got emotional. There was a tear that came down his eyes.
That was the tattoo.
No, there was an actual tear.
Really?
Yes, there was a tear. He got emotional. It was a long time between title reigns. He won it in 91, like right off, like within the first year that he debuted. Debuted at Survivor Series 90, got the title at Survivor Series 91. Doesn't win his second WWF championship until 1997. So it was a long time in between title reigns, a lot of rubbish feuds. And we want to talk about people that their characters get even better with time. The Undertaker meets his ultimate rival later in this year in his brother Kane. So the recurring theme about this show, WrestleMania 13, the previous show that we did, Royal Rumble 97, the evolution and the storylines of all these characters and where they lead, it like all crescendos and builds almost at the same time. And that's why the Attitude Era was so good. It wasn't because of the wrestling. It was the stories and it was the characters that
definitely
made it possible. This is my hot take. It's not really a hot take. I think it's the truth. The wrestling and the athleticism is 1,000 times better today. 1,000 times better today. But the storytelling, the character work,
back then,
and the promo work was significantly better back then.
Yeah.
And I don't know why and how we got to the point in today's product where that stuff that we spoke about The promos, the storytelling has gone by the wayside, but it needs to come back. I appreciate great matches, but there's only so many great matches I can watch before I'm like, why am I watching this match? What is this building to?
Yeah.
What is this culminating in? We don't get that too often. And when we do get it, it's a treat. But in this time period between late 96 through 2000, 2001 even, there was just monumental storylines and characters like we've never seen before and haven't seen really since.
Mm-hmm.
Anything you would like to add?
As far as Taker and Sid goes, it wasn't one of the best big man matches ever. I think, like you said, it was for Sid to be a transitional champion, for Taker to get the belt for the first time in years. Ultimately, on a perfect card, Bret Hart and Austin would have closed out WrestleMania 13.
And originally, let's just say Shawn doesn't lose his smile, right? Doesn't have his knee injury. What would have this card looked like? I think it was going to be HBK and Bret again running it back.
Interesting.
Where would have Austin been on this card?
Probably
Right?
a throwaway.
It's crazy to think about. In many ways, we make fun of Michaels for losing his smile, but Michaels losing his smile and
Made it a
doing what
better
he
card.
did was probably one of the best things that ever happened.
Yeah, it made it a better card.
It made it a better card. It gave us one of the best matches of all time, storytelling of all time in a match. It was fantastic. And I keep saying this. The only other match that I remember at a WrestleMania that had so much storyline built into the match was the Ultimate Warrior Savage match at WrestleMania 7.
Okay.
But the Bret and Austin is just, it takes it to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Looking back, this WrestleMania, is it a GOAT tier? Is it a mid tier? Is it a lower tier?
Mid to upper.
Yes. So I think when we did WrestleMania 12, we said if you took Bret and Shawn off of the card, it was a low tier WrestleMania.
Yeah.
The same can be said if you took Austin and Bret off of this card. It's funny how one match in this era could make or break a WrestleMania, but it really did.
Yeah.
Those two matches were so great that it elevated the way that we look at an entire pay-per-view. Yeah, so I'll agree with you. Mid to high tier is my rating. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button.
Definitely.
We love you guys. We're doing WCW pay-per-views. There will be a poll up. Vote on that poll. You will control the narrative of the show and where we're headed. I'm going to rig it, though, like Cyber Tuesday or whatever, Cyber Sunday. What was it? Taboo Tuesday, Cyber Sunday, where they would rig it. So I'm going to rig it on our second poll. So we have to do one that has Vader involved. Now, anything else you want to say to our audience before signing off?
As always, like, subscribe, comment, share, tell your friends to share. thank you for helping us reach 6:30.
5:30.
5:30.
5.
Getting ahead of myself there.
I mean, by the time this releases, maybe we are at 6:30. Who knows? Who knows? And also check out, our baseball only show. Me and Mr. Fire Frank, we do at least 1 or 2 episodes every week talking baseball. There's also some fantasy football content that's coming up on the station as well. I do break night hangouts for all the big breakers in the community. So check those out. I do pack openings, box openings. If you want to sponsor a video, find my email.
Awesome stuff.
Yep. As I usually say before signing off, good night and good luck. Farewell. We'll see you later, alligator.